Hey folks, welcome to Man Cave Makings with me, Gus. Well, there's not a lot on this bench to give you a clue about what this video is all about, because it's kind of about this bench. I made this bench years ago, way before I was making YouTube videos, and have struggled at times to kind of explain how I made it when I've been asked. But a little opportunity arose last week. A friend of mine reached out to me on social media and said, look, I'm looking for a really solid workbench for his little man cave. He does leather work, some sewing, riveting and things like that, and he needs a really solid base to work from. He's going to put a granite top on his. I think it's going to look absolutely stunning. So I thought I'd do a little video to try and help maybe a beginner or an intermediate thinking about building a workbench. Just think about the sort of processes, how we're going to do it. We're just going to use one item, which is this box section, 50 by 50 mil, 3 mil wall, steel box section, and I'm going to put a channel around the top, but you could do whatever you want to finish off your top. But yeah, just some of the steps to go through. Little short video, nothing too in depth, but hopefully we'll answer some of the questions about how I go about making a little workbench. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get in it.
So I use SketchUp, or I've just started actually to use SketchUp a lot more in terms of getting ideas down and just kind of trying to visualize stuff in a software program. This is SketchUp free, and it's an online resource, so you don't have to download anything to your computer or anything like that. It's just it's cloud-based, I think, and it's free to use. You don't have to pay any money for it. But it's what is really good for and useful is rendering out your ideas. So in this instance, the guy I'm making the table for didn't really know what he was looking for, so gave him a couple of options. Even down to the detail of, maybe how the top goes on, or in this case, how the sort of cornicing works and how that's going to sit in, the basic kind of details. But what it allows you to do is give all these different angles and views, and you can kind of just screenshot record this and send it on and say, well, that's what I think. There's the sizes, dimensions, everything associated with it. What do you think? And, it gives your clients or the guys you're making stuff for a really good idea of what you're up to. So yeah, it's really improved my workflow anyway, so maybe give it a shot.
Obviously you want to get your base stock material all nicely cut up and ready to weld. But I guess you could use anything, even down to a hand hacksaw if you had the time. But yeah, one of the fundamental principles is getting things as square as they can be, ready for welding. I do tend to use an angle grinder for most things, just because that's what I'm used to using. It does take a wee bit of time, and if I had another choice, like maybe a bandsaw or something like that, I'm sure that would be a better option for me. It's all in the prep, so you make your ends of your tubes as clean as possible. When you get to weld it, it will go absolutely brilliantly. So here it's just a matter of tack welding up the ends to close in the ends of the tubes for the legs, and then we're on to the next process. So I'm just going to take 2 minutes out to explain a process, and that's a weld sequence process. When you're dealing with box section, obviously this is wood, but it just shows the contrast better than box. I made some set squares a while back now. I'm sure you can buy these things, but I like making stuff, so I made these myself. 3 mil flat plate, 3 mil by 30 mil flat bar. Just fabricate them up, hole saws, that's as simple as it gets. And what that allows me to do is, when you're dealing with a 90 degree, offer that up, 2 clamps either side, boom, there you go. You've got a nice clean square edge, get everything nice and squared in, then you make some tack welds up, and you start from a really good base of having a square piece to work from. Now, although that's a massive help, and I would advocate you go and give this a try, this won't stop weld deformation in its entirety. so there is a little bit of a sequence to go to. Now, if you've done some welding before, you'll know that weld material shrinks. So it will shrink in the direction of your weld. So if, for instance, for argument's sake, and I'll kind of exaggerate it here, if in a sequence you didn't do any other weld except for this weld here and you made a full pass here, this will want to open up like that because the weld material will have shrunk. So it will shrink in that direction, opening up the back. Equally, if you did the top one first, it will want to splay out like that. Bottom one equally would want to splay out like that. Back one will want to pull it apart like that. Now, that's the reason these are so useful, is when you get that clamped in, the very first one that you do is the outside edge. So you do that one first with the clamp in, that will not go anywhere. Then you do the top and bottom seam welds, and then the very last one is your inside seam. That's the last weld that you do on box section. And if you follow those kind of simple kind of sort of techniques and rules, you'll get a nice square edged, square piece, not very much deformation if any at all, and it means you don't have any rework or re-welding to do. So I hope that's explained reasonably well, and yeah, you can maybe get after a little Sunday project. So just as I said, squaring everything up is really important to start off with, and here I'm just measuring across the angles, and as long as you get the same across the angles, then you know you've got a square piece. And then I just tack weld up. I tend to tack weld everything up first, make sure it's all square and boxed in that way before doing full passes, and then that'll stop all the deformation. And here's how these useful set squares get used, just with all the angles. Keeps everything nice and squared off, especially when you're attaching legs and things like that. Really useful. You have to get into some funky shapes sometimes, but you know, hey, it's all good. So as I mentioned, I've done this sort of angled top just because that's what the client wanted on this occasion, but you could equally do just about anything for a top. But I'll just start to show you just the little beaded edges in, and then a couple of nice kind of floaty shots. Well, here she is. It's all done. And I'm pretty chuffed with the outcome, to be fair. It's come out how I wanted it to. It's got that industrial feel to it, that kind of rustic kind of look to it, and that's what the client wants as well. So he's going to put a granite top in, 2 slabs that are going to go in here, and I think that's going to look really, really nice. I think we'll just put a lacquer spray over the top of it, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, similar kind of construction to the bench I've already made, but yeah, I think you kind of demonstrates out what the kind of processes you might want to go through, think about when you're building a sort of workbench. As always, thank you very much for watching. It means the world to me to hear from you, so if you do want to leave a comment, please do so, and also, well, hit the like button, and if this is something you like, maybe subscribe. That would be also tremendous. And as always, well, I hope to catch you again.